to our midday webinar today. We are very excited on the topic and excited to get started. Before we do, let me introduce myself. My name is Sarah Basinger. I'm the Alumni Career Counselor here at Tulane Alumni Office. We are located at on the Uptown campus of Tulane University, and we are located at the B Field Alumni House on Willow Street. So if you find yourself uptown, especially during homecoming coming up this weekend, feel free to stop by. I want to just let you know we are offering several different webinars this fall, including this one, and you can find out more information on tulaneconnect.com or our main website at alumni.tulane.edu. So please feel free to check out those other webinars, as well as an exciting networking event coming up on November 14th, National Networking Night. We are hosting simultaneous networking events in over 20 cities across the country, as well as an online networking event if you're not able to attend those events in your city or if there isn't one available. So again, all of that information can be found on either tulaneconnect.com or alumni.tulane.edu. So without further ado, and to make sure that we jump right into the content and use your time wisely, I'm going to turn it over to Nick Douglas with the, oh man, I'm going to get it. Nick, help me out with the Office of Human Resources. I think that there's a better title for it.
Oh yeah, no, that's it.
That's it. Great. Okay.
Yeah, we rebranded recently, so it's all good.
Wonderful. So Nick Douglas, he's at the Office of Human Resources. He is going to be giving us a great presentation on getting hired at Tulane, learn about the process. We get a lot of questions from our alums on how to get hired. Tulane is a great place to work. And so Nick is going to show us lots of information, give us some background and tips and tricks on the process. So I'll turn it over to you, Nick.
Well, thank you, Nicole. I definitely appreciate the opportunity to speak to everybody today, and I hope this is a useful experience. As you seek employment at Tulane in particular. My understanding is that I think most of the audience are probably alumni or possibly even current students here at the university. So, we're here on slightly off campus, just down Broadway Street from Uptown campus, and we're available to you. We're located at 200 Broadway Street, Suite 122. And if you ever have any questions about the hiring process or different opportunities here at the university, we're happy to help. Just as an introduction, my name is Nick Douglas. I'm the Talent Acquisition Manager here at the Office of Human Resources. As I mentioned earlier, we actually rebranded recently, formerly called Workforce Management Organization. We changed our name to Office of Human Resources as part of a greater effort to kind of rethink our strategy and move forward into the future, serving the university as best we can in all aspects of HR. So in talent acquisition, we work kind of in the recruitment piece for staff and faculty, and also for student employment. Currently the way that the hiring process is set up is a little bit decentralized, and so our direction forward in the next year especially is to move into more of a recruitment model where we're more actively engaging the various departments at the university in the recruitment process. So what I'm going to present on today is really one slice of what we do, and really is kind of the front end and the applicant facing piece of the process. It's going to be a lot of kind of mechanics of applying for jobs here at the university and kind of clarifying some distinctions in the different processes. But we'll have some question time afterwards. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have, and I'll have my contact info at the end as well if you have any follow-ups. So I'm going to jump right into it. So the primary job website and job board for the university is Tulane Jobs. It's a very simple URL, tulane.edu/jobs. And the main page, kind of the landing page, looks like what you see on the screen right now. It is the primary an up-to-date job board for staff, faculty, postdocs, and also temporary positions at Tulane. So we do offer temporary positions that are basically assignments that'll last no more than 6 months. In addition, of course, to all our regular and other part-time positions. This site is one of several out there where you're going to find postings for Tulane positions, but it is the most current. And we do actually, in our office, post new job vacancies to this website 5 days a week. So if you go on the website and kind of play around with it, you'll see that we have a lot of job openings out there for lots of different kinds of positions, and we do update Monday through Friday. Now, there is another website that's utilized in the faculty and postdoc space called Interfolio. Now, it's a third-party website that's been brought into and actually incorporated into the process here at Tulane. It's tailored a little bit more carefully to the kind of the higher ed jobs, processes, kind of the customs out there in hiring for faculty and postdoc fellows. But the Tulane job site will still capture those opportunities and redirect applicants to Interfolio to actually submit the application materials for those jobs. When we in Talent Acquisition post new jobs to the job site, we simultaneously post them to Knoll.com's job classifieds. And it's part of an effort to really tap into the local talent, since Knoll.com is such a popular site, and of course the Times-Picayune's network of sites is used so commonly around here in New Orleans. So that is, basically Tulane Jobs and Knoll.com are the only sites that we actually control in terms of the postings here in Talent Acquisition. Any other job boards, aside from Interfolio, that have job postings for Tulane, for example, LinkedIn or Indeed, are actually not managed by HR here at Tulane. They actually scrape from Tulane Jobs and from Knoll.com on a periodic basis. So you may actually find some listings that are old and expired. We do get calls occasionally saying, oh, well, I see this job's on Indeed and really want to apply for it, but then it turns out it actually closed 3 days beforehand. So unfortunately, we can't control the kind of the delay for the second and third party websites that scrape from our primary sources. But we definitely we definitely feel the pain of applicants who run into that, can sometimes work with them. So bottom line, Tulane Jobs is going to be your primary source. So from the Tulane Job homepage here, you're going to see a few tabs. You're going to see one that says prospective employees. You're going to see one that says current employees, and one that says former employees. So if you are a new applicant to Tulane, if you've never worked here before, even as a student worker, then you would be looking at the prospective employees tab. And most of the time, there are a couple ways that you can approach searching for jobs, but most of the time, it'll be easy to just click that big blue button that says search jobs and kind of go from there. Like, you don't actually have to register for the website to be able to search through all of our opportunities. So what you'll want to do if you're looking for current postings is just click that blue button. And the next page is going to look very different. This is actually within our applicant tracking system. And you'll see there are a few different search options here. There's a keyword search, there's a city location search, and of course Tulane has employees in a lot of different locations. Most of them are located in the New Orleans area, but we do have people across the river in Belle Chase. We got uptown and downtown. We have employees in Harahan. We also have a presence in Mississippi, Biloxi. We've got employees in Houston for some of the business school programs, and we even have employees in Connecticut for investment management and lots of other places, believe it or not. So if you are located in one of those places, you can narrow your search by location. And then the date posted drop down that you see is going to give you a time frame so that you're not looking at every single posting that's ever been posted. You can narrow it down to the last 3 days or the last 2 weeks or the last month, etc., to kind of get the most current postings. Not to say that if it's still posted, it's old. We do kind of keep it real time. So if a job is posted, then it still has not yet been filled. But sometimes it helps to see what's most current, especially if you check frequently. Now, I do unfortunately have one caveat to mention on this job search site. The keyword search is not working at the moment. There's a technical issue that our technology services team is working on. So the best you can do with this with these search functions right now is narrow it down by location and time frame, and then you can kind of sift through what comes up. You can actually sort also by what's actually by alphabetical order for the department, for the job title. You can even sort by date, so you can actually see what's most current. Now, there actually is an advanced search function on the job search. That big red arrow is pointing to the button to click on advanced search, and it just adds a couple more options to narrow down the types of jobs that you're looking for. So when you click on advanced search, this is what you see. You lose the location, but you actually can narrow down the job category. So if you're looking only for faculty positions, you can select that. If you're looking for postdoc or staff, those are all things that you can select. You can even select multiples of those to get a kind of a more tailored search result. There's also the addition of the employment status drop-down menu. And what that is it actually allows you to select between regular, full-time and temporary and part-time positions as well. So if you know you only have certain availability, if you have to work part-time, you can narrow it down. If you're only looking for a temporary position, or if you really do want to get that regular position, you can also search that way. So just as a reminder, unfortunately, the keyword field on here is still not functional, even in the advanced search, but hopefully we'll be able to resolve that here pretty soon. So let's say you've made some selections and click search. This is what you're going to see as a result. There's only one result that comes up here. It's just as an example, but if you keep the search pretty broad, you'll have multiples that come up, just because we do have a lot of positions currently posted, and really at any given time. What you see down there in the search results under name, that's the sort of the job code that we use for tracking within the applicant tracking system. We've got the job title, resident director for this example. The organization name, that's the department in the university that is hiring. So Residence Life is hiring for this particular position. Professional area, that's going to be staff or faculty or librarian, postdoc, etc. So you can kind of identify what you're looking for based on that. And then there's the beginning of the description. It's brief, it's truncated. So if you click into the listing itself, you get the full posting content. The next column over is the date posted. Of course, it's the date that it was posted to the website. Most of our positions are posted for 2 weeks at a minimum, and really most of them don't post any longer than that. But there are some that will post for longer period of time, and others that'll even be posted until filled. And then the employment status on the far right, full-time, that means it's either a 37.5 hour work week or a 40-hour work week, depending on the department. And then apply now on the far right is that button where you can initiate the application process if you choose to. Now, if you click on the far left on the name, IRC 12927, if you click on that link, then it'll take you into the full job posting. And here's an example of that resident director position. It's got the job title, it's got the location. So, if you're located in Mississippi or Houston, this may not be the right fit. So this helps you identify that. Organization name, again, that's the department. So the jobs that we post, particularly for staff, are always going to have minimum qualifications and education on there. They're going to have a posting summary and usually have required knowledge, skills, and abilities. And the summary and the required KSAs are going to help you kind of get a feel for what the job is and what some of the duties might be. It usually will give you some sense of reporting relationships, where your department falls into the grand scheme of things and where your job falls within that organization. The required knowledge, skills, and abilities and competencies are not necessarily minimum requirements, but they give you a sense of what the department might be looking for in a successful candidate. Now, what's important to pay attention to in these postings is minimum qualifications and minimum education. These actually are really the linchpin when it comes to just screening for qualified candidates. You must meet or exceed the minimum education and minimum qualifications in order to be hired. You actually can't even be considered really if you don't meet these qualifications or considered for an offer rather. This is something that's essential to the job description, essential to the search, and it's how we are able to maintain a fair search. So we're not just hiring people who maybe sound like they might fit the job well. We have to make sure that consistent minimum requirements are established and maintained across searches. So our system is not going to prevent your application from going through if you don't meet the minimum education qualifications, but we do ask you to consider what they are, and they're taken pretty literally on the recruitment end. So if you just don't have the bachelor's degree that's required, or if it says it has 3 years of particular experience that's required, if you have 2, then you're probably not going to get an offer or even an interview. So again, there's no automatic screening in the system, but there is a person on the other end who is going to take a look at your qualifications and compare it to the job description. The preferred qualifications below the minimum quals are useful to learn more about who the ideal candidate would be for the job, but they're not requirements. So in this particular case, the minimum requirement is a bachelor's degree by the date of hire, or a high school and experience equivalency. So those are really the minimum requirements, but the preferred qualifications are going to tell you what the particularly competitive candidate will actually be for this position. And one thing I wanted to point out, just because you don't necessarily see it that often, is here at the university and within the compensation philosophy, a couple of years ago, we adopted a system of equivalencies. We realized that there are lots of jobs in the university and just in general that may off the bat require a degree, but can definitely be done successfully by somebody who just hasn't finished that bachelor's or hasn't finished that master's and might be required otherwise. So for jobs that require just a particular kind of or a particular degree, not a specific discipline within that degree, but just a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, there actually are equivalencies based on sort of the next level below in terms of education, plus a certain number of years of directly related experience. So in this case, this position requires somebody to have a bachelor's degree, doesn't specify the type. So the equivalency, and there's a formula that determines this, is going to ask for 6 years of directly related residence life experience plus a high school diploma, or equivalent to the high school diploma. So that way, we're able to tap into that market of folks who just haven't finished that degree, but might actually be very, very successful in this job. We don't want to miss out on them. So at the very bottom of the posting, you'll see where it says, click apply now. And on the next slide, you'll see where the button is. I'll show that to you. And also, more importantly, it tells you when the position closes. We're very transparent about this, except in those cases really where it's hired until filled. And we kind of try to steer away from those. But sometimes jobs require, depending on the job, they kind of require like a longer search. But again, most of our jobs post for 2 weeks, and we'll usually have that date on there. So if you need some time to, update your resume or get some references together, you know exactly when the job's going to come down, and you'll have time to submit your application. And we have our EEO, Equal Employment Opportunity Statement at the bottom on all of our postings, because we definitely want to encourage all kinds of people to apply. We definitely value diversity here at the university. It's an important strategic initiative, and so we just want to make sure that's definitely clear and definitely in practice on our end too. So the this is kind of the zoom out of that page. On the top right of the screen, you're going to see a button that says Apply Now. That's actually where you would click to start the application process. To the left of that, you'll also see a couple other buttons. Add to basket, that you actually can save jobs in an account for to review later, to apply for later as well. We'll get more into that in a second. So if you are interested in this job, it looks good, and you think you're qualified, then you can apply now, and we can go from there. So the next step after if you don't already have an account with the job site, which the system calls iRecruitment, we refer to it as Tulane Jobs or iRecruitment kind of interchangeably. This is the point where you'd register. If you'd already registered with the website, then you can log in using your credentials that you created when you registered beforehand. Because you can definitely register before you even start searching if you're sure that you're going to apply for something. But most of the time, just from from talking to candidates, people just search for jobs first, and then they decide, oh, okay, that looks really interesting, and they kind of go from there. So if you decide to register, this is the next page that comes up. If you click Register Today, this is going to be where you start the process of creating your account. At the top there, if you are a current employee of the university, you can click the link above that and enter your Tulane credentials that you already have. And what this does is it helps the system recognize you as an employee and match this application to your employment record. So it just makes the hiring process just a little bit easier, and the onboarding process a bit easier if you end up being offered the job. On the bottom left of this page, there's another job search field, another opportunity to search. But usually if you've gotten to this point, this is where you're going to register for the job or log in. And if you have questions about the credentials that you created, if you need to reset your password, or if you just don't remember, we do have the phone number and email of our network operations support office on there. HR doesn't manage these credentials, so if you already had an account, or if you have trouble with your iRecruitment account, feel free to give Technology Services a call, and they'll be able to help you out. All right, so we click Register, and this is the first page of the registration form. You're going to enter an email address, first and last name, and you'll create a password at the bottom there. If your email address is already in the system, like if you created an account before and kind of forgot about it, it's not going to let you create an account, a second account under that address. So it'll ask you to create a new one, or you can contact our network operations and get your credentials back. After you've entered that information, the system's going to ask you if you have a resume to upload to the system. If you do not, you can click No, I do not have a resume, and kind of go from there. You can fill out information, and the system can actually generate a resume for you if you don't attach anything. But kind of as a tip, most hiring managers are going to be looking for that resume. So if you don't have it, if you don't have one to attach, that's okay. They'll eventually get the information, but it might just be a little bit easier for the manager who's reviewing your application if you do have something uploaded on there. So the next page, after you've resolved the resume, either you've uploaded it or you said no, is where you start entering more personal information for your candidate profile in iRecruitment. So your basic details auto-populate because you already entered that. Source details is asking how you came to the website, whether it was through NOLA.com or through an employee. You can enter that information there, and that helps us track basically the web traffic and how applicants are coming to our job site. You enter your address, phone numbers, and then documents. Now this is where from right off the bat, if you have like a generic resume or a particular resume that you know you're going to use, or a cover letter or multiple cover letters or resumes, you can attach them here so they're available for you to select in the future when you actually apply for the job. So you can leave it alone, or you can attach those documents at this point if you'd like. A lot of times, especially if you're applying for multiple jobs, you're going to have particular resumes for each application. You know, it'll have a different job title in it. You know, it'll emphasize different set of skills, training particular to that job. So we do see a lot of candidates will have multiples of resumes and cover letters on here. And this is just kind of the zoomed in screen capture of what we just saw, because I know it was kind of probably a little bit hard to read. Personal information, source details, the address, and then this is the rest of the page. You can enter your phone numbers and also times to call. So, you know, if you're at work, you know, you can specify, you know, call me in the evening, or if you're available all the time, you can enter that. And then documents where you can attach your resume and cover letter, right? And any other documents that you might want to attach that would be relevant to an application. So after you've done that section, it'll take you, the system will take you to the qualifications and skills section. So this is where you can enter employment history, education and qualifications. The first section, employment history, you know, you can add as many employers as you like. I think there might be a limit, I think, of 20, but most applicants don't get that high in number. You can add, you know, basically the name of the employer, roughly start date and end date as best you can, job title, location, and you know, the instructions ask you for supervisor name and contact, last salary, those kinds of things. I mean, it's not mandatory. You can include that information if you like, but you know, ideally, what you're adding in these sections is, you know, qualifications and skills that you gained and experience in that job, and particularly if they're relevant to the job you're applying for. In the education section, you would enter your details about, you know, colleges and universities you've attended, as well as you know, the qualifications or degrees that you receive from those universities. So you can add multiples there too. Now for additional qualifications, you can enter custom information, but there also is a drop down of, you know, commonly seen certifications or licenses you can select from, and of course you can enter the date, and you can kind of go from there. The next page is going to show you, it's going to basically ask you for some account preferences. You know, so the system can actually search for jobs, you know, for you, or at least present certain jobs within certain constraints. So you can enter that in the first section. There's a privacy option there for display language and, you know, allowing the account to be searched. And then email preferences. So you can enter, you know, how frequently you receive emails from the system, the type of code, if it's HTML or plain text, depending on how you're viewing it. And, you know, you can opt in or opt out of those matching jobs emails based on your preferences from before. The next page refers to the resume that's generated by the system that I referenced earlier. If you enter that information in your qualifications and education section, the system can actually present you with what looks like something, you know, a resume that was essentially typed by a person. So this kind of saves some of the effort. You can choose from different formats of resumes if you don't have one that you've already attached to the system. So it just presents the information in a more kind of commonly seen, a little bit more pleasant way for the manager to review. So once you have submitted your application, like once you've actually finished that page, I'm sorry, not your application, your candidate profile. Your profile is created at this point, and this is the iRecruitment homepage. So if you log out and log back in, this is the landing page that you'll see. You'll see a notifications section in case there are any changes on your account. You'll see jobs applied for. This automatically lists at least a few of the jobs that you've applied for, and you can select the full list there. And there's a section at the end, My Interviews. There actually is an interview scheduling function in the system, but it's actually not used very commonly, so you usually won't see anything on there. Above that, you'll see a link below the 2 tabs, it says My Account. If you wanted to go in and make any changes to your candidate profile, that's actually where you would do it. So if you click on My Account, it's going to present you with basically with what you just did. So you can edit the information that you entered. Now, what's useful on this page in particular is that Jobs tab. If you click on that little Jobs tab next to the Home tab, what you'll see is this view, where it actually lists all of the jobs that you applied for by name, job title, department, location, etc., and also a status. So the status that's on there, once you've submitted an application, it's basically going to say under departmental review until some further action is taken, whether you're hired or not hired. It's not a ton of detail, but if you were not selected for a position, usually you'll receive an email from the system letting you know that. But if for some reason you didn't, then you can check that status and it would say potentially not selected. If you are being considered for an interview for the position, then the hiring department is going to that receives your application is actually going to contact you directly. So just as a reminder, the status will usually just read under departmental review until kind of a final action is taken. If you are that top candidate, or if you are one of the interview group, then they will reach out. When I say they, the hiring department will reach out to you, typically not HR, directly for a phone or an in-person interview. So for that reason, it's very important that your contact information that you apply with is current in iRecruitment. One thing that we do see often is a former employee or former student applying with a tulane.edu email address that they actually can't access anymore. I understand why that would be done, because it looks like you have a connection to the university, which you do, because you have that old email address, and that might kind of gain more attention from the hiring manager, which it can. But when it comes time to actually process the hire, it causes issues just because we can't actually reach you through that email address. So we do encourage you to use contact information that's current. If you receive a verbal offer after interviewing, what will happen is you'll receive a link for a background check. So all of our staff hires, except for internal hires, undergo a background check. It's part of the standard staff process. We don't do it for faculty at this time. And it basically just helps the university assess risk based on the results of that background check. Once the background check is cleared, then the hiring manager will reach back out to you to confirm the start date. So it's very important to kind of make that distinction. If you do receive a verbal offer, that's not necessarily the final offer, because the background check process still has to clear. So one thing I often tell candidates is, okay, you got that verbal offer, but don't put in your notice yet in your current job, or don't move until you actually have that confirmed start date after the background check is cleared. So that way, the expectations that are being set are accurate and reliable. If you do have a confirmed start date with the hiring manager, then the next step will be to complete an onboarding packet if you're an external hire. That's sent to you by email also. That's where we'd capture personal information, tax information, direct deposit info, and some of the legal paperwork to fill out as part of the onboarding process. And then new hires, faculty, staff, student, all kinds, are going to present supporting documentation for their eligibility to work in the United States. So there's federal law that basically the expectation is certain employers of a certain size have to verify a new hire's eligibility to work, in the U.S. So there's a certain list of acceptable documents that you would have to bring with you on your first day to validate that. And then we validate it through the E-Verify system through the federal government. So it's a very important piece of the process. We can't hire without that kind of paperwork. Some of the more commonly seen documents are going to be like a passport, or social security card plus a driver's license, or original birth certificate, but there are lots of different combinations. And if you're an international hire, those documents will be a little bit different also. If you're being hired as staff, you'll attend a new hire orientation session on your first day. So we usually do try to match the start date with that orientation session, so you kind of get all that good information right off the bat. And we kind of send, we actually help run the orientation here at HR. We manage it, but there are presentations from other departments at the university to get you, basically in the right direction. There's welcoming information, history of the university, but also more practical things and training that might be required as well, for compliance purposes. But we really do try to make it as engaging and enjoyable experience as possible. And what's really cool about it is you do get to meet your colleagues, whether they're in your department or not. You get a real snapshot right off the bat of how diverse this workforce is. I mean, Tulane is such a large organization with so many employees that we really do a bit of everything, and that we hope that kind of helps set things off on the right foot. And of course, this is where we also collect the I-9 supporting documents and any other onboarding paperwork that might be needed. So that's about it in terms of the presentation, the formal part of the presentation. I just wanted to say a couple things about being an alumni of the university. I do get the question pretty often, is there any special consideration for alumni at the university? Really, the answer is that there's not. I mean, it's one of those things where what helps you in the process as alumni is being the Tulane University and the hiring managers working for the university. We kind of have a baseline level of expectation for the quality of graduates. So that's definitely going to help you. And if you do have Tulane on your resume in one way or another, it usually will kind of give you a little bit extra attention. But there's not like a formal quota. There's not a formal system, excuse me, for alumni. And so I just want to make sure that I mention that, because we definitely value alumni. We value you enormously, and we want you to stay with Tulane, absolutely, because we know what kinds of students and graduates the university produces. But just in case there was any question, I just want to make sure that I mentioned that. We're here to answer any questions you have, for as much time, I guess, until 1 o'clock. But beyond that, definitely have, here you can see the whole talent acquisition team, the second person on there. My contact info is on there. You can ask me any questions you have beyond this presentation. But at this time, I'm happy to take questions.
I'm going to chime in real quick. This is Sarah again. Nick, thank you so much for this presentation. It was very interesting for me just to kind of get a little bit deeper into the process. I wanted to just let everybody know that's on the webinar. I'm sending out a message on the chat function, just giving you the information for Alumni Career Services, our email. As Nick mentioned in the presentation about the resume. So if you don't have a resume, or if you'd like somebody to take a look at it before you submit it, that's what we are here for in Alumni Career Services, to help you with that, with the cover letter. If you want to do mock interviews, we offer lots of different services for any stage of your job search experience. So I just wanted to make sure that I shared our email with you. And then if you aren't aware, there is a questions tab. I know some of you are already submitting those questions, but feel free to type those in, and Nick can just go through those and adjust those as there's time allowed.
Okay, let's see. So I'm pulling up the questions in the function here. Just be 1 second. Okay. So so the first question I'm looking at here, in the application process, there's a line in the instructions that says resumes will not be accepted in lieu of applications for staff positions. So the question is, what does this mean? Do we have to fill them out as well as submit our resumes? So when this system was developed a few years ago, I think it actually rolled out in 2013. The idea was to really kind of get as much information as possible in there. So what this instruction is asking you to do is to fill something out, basically, in the qualifications and education section of the application. You know, some hiring managers prefer to look at that first. Many others look for resumes or cover letters first, but everybody usually looks at both. So I think the idea here was really just to have as much information as possible for the managers to consider. You know, if you happen to leave that section blank for some reason, you know, chances are you probably won't be taken into consideration. They'll just look at your resume that you attached. So I hope that's, you know, I know it's a little clear as mud, but I hope that's helpful. Let's see. Sorry, I'm scrolling through questions here. Okay. So this question is, I've applied 6 times in the last 3 years. I've never received one response from a human, and certainly no acknowledgement of being alumni applicant. Why? Well, I guess first off, you know, it sounds like, you know, the experience hasn't been great with the system, and I do want to apologize for that. I know that the current system was put in place about 4 years ago, and it is pretty reliant on automatic notifications. You know, when a job is filled, there's an action that takes place in HR that basically notifies all the applicants for the job that you know, there are rather all the other applicants that they're not selected. Yeah, there is an automatic email that, you know, lets you know that you're not selected. You know, one thing that we're really trying to do, especially in the next year, is to get more of a personal touch in the process and taking more of a proactive recruiting approach, which will likely involve a lot more interaction on the front end with applicants. And one thing I do want to say too is, you know, we definitely are very, very happy to, you know, answer any questions in the process you might have. So if you know, give me a call or one of my team, you know, if you have questions about jobs that you've been applying for, we're definitely happy to help. I mean, we can help. We want to make sure we're not giving, you know, preference to one person versus another. But we definitely are happy to provide some tips for the application process. So one thing I would also say is, you know, definitely encourage you to continue applying. You know, we do have a lot of jobs that are posted 5 days a week, and all kinds of opportunities that are opening up. So I hope that's a satisfactory response. And if you have, you know, another question related to your situation, feel free to give me a call or an email. I'll be happy to help. Let's see. So I got a question. I've worked as a research assistant for a Tulane professor before. Do I still search as prospective employees? Basically, if you have been a student worker or staff or faculty employee for the university, if you have had a TUID, then you would start the process through the former employee section. If for some reason the system can't pull up your ID, then you can definitely apply to the prospective employee section just as a backup, and we'll be able to match your information on the back end if you're hired. Let's see. Okay, so I do have a question here. From what I understand, when you apply for a job at Tulane, your history of jobs applied to is available for the current hiring manager to view. Why is that? It seems like it may bias the current reviewer. That's something that was built into the system from rollout. Unfortunately, I wasn't part of the team that did that. I just didn't work here yet. But it's something I'll definitely take back and discuss. We're actually, in the next year, we're undergoing a major revamp of the applicant tracking system. And this is an issue that has come up in the past. and we have down for action, we're definitely going to take a look at that. Not just system-wise, but also whether it's really the right thing to do. So that's something that I'll definitely be bringing up as we are undertaking this project. Let's see. If you're offered a position and live out of state, is relocation assistance available? There's no default policy. I mean, there is a policy on relocation expenses, but it really depends on the individual department and what they're willing to assist with and how much they're willing to pay. I'd say most of the time we don't see it, but particularly for higher level positions, it's not that unusual to see it. Whether it's arranging through some kind of moving company or a more full service relocation company. So I guess the best answer is it really depends on the position. Let's see. How many interviews am I expecting if I'm an ideal candidate? So that is also going to depend on the position and on the department. Each department does its own interviewing and recruiting, and each department also has different approaches to that. Some departments are larger, and if they're hiring for a higher level position, they may have more interviews for a candidate than others might. You may get a phone screen, most likely, and then have an interview or multiple interviews beyond that. That also really depends on the job. So again, I definitely encourage everybody to continue applying and kind of seeing where it goes from there. That interview experience is really going to vary from department to department. Let's see, here's another question. All right. Do you have any advice for an experienced candidate with overlapping job experience in different fields? This is kind of my opinion, and I'd ask the career services folks to interrupt me if I'm off track. But one thing that I've always kind of coached and encouraged applicants to do is, if you're applying for a position that is really more focused on a particular area, like in a particular field, more so than in another, if you have the experience in multiple fields, you can really kind of tailor your cover letter and tailor your resume to kind of highlight those skills and that knowledge more than the other ones that you've had. I mean, I think it doesn't hurt to be well-rounded, but you also don't want to appear, I guess, kind of stretched thin in terms of experience and training and knowledge. So what I would say is, that's the opportunity to really use your cover letter and your resume to kind of focus on the field that job is in that you're applying for. That really, I think, has served a lot of people well in the past. And it really, it's not, I mean, because you're not making it up. I mean, it is experience that you have, it is knowledge that you have. You're just kind of focusing on that more than other experience. Because ultimately, I mean, what you're doing is you're presenting yourself, you're kind of making the case for why you're the best fit for that job. There are going to be probably a lot of qualified people who meet those minimum qualifications in education. But what you're doing with the cover letter and the resume is really kind of highlighting and making it easy for the hiring manager who's reviewing your materials to say, oh, okay, this person doesn't just meet qualifications, they're actually the best fit because, and that because is that argument you make in your application. I hope that's helpful. Let's see, does temporary positions offer health insurance too? The answer is yes, but only if you're working 30 hours a week or more. And that's a limited benefit. It's just health insurance. You don't get the full suite of employee benefits. So if you're in a temporary assignment, which is going to end at the end of 6 months, you'll only be offered health insurance if you're working 30 hours a week or more. And for regular positions, so non-temporary, regular staff positions and faculty as well, if you are working 50% of the time, meaning 18.375 hours or more per week, then you'll be offered the full benefits package respective to staff or faculty. If you go below that, even though you're a regular employee, you won't be offered those kinds of benefits below 18.375. So let's see, I think I covered all the questions that I see on here. I'll turn it back over to the Career Services team in case there are any other questions I missed. Yeah, I definitely want to thank everybody for your time, and definitely urge you to contact me if you have any questions at all about the hiring process here at the university.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah, you did a great job, all the questions. Thank you everyone for participating and for engaging in the question section. Again, just want to echo Nick on contacting him as well as Alumni Career Services at tulane.edu for any emails, any ways that we can help you throughout the job search process. So if you have any extra questions after the webinar, please feel free to use those emails shown on the screen and in the chat. And with that, we will go ahead and end the webinar. And thank you all for attending, and have a wonderful day. And happy